in. She was more than happy to open it up to the Southland. And as we've come to find out, it will be of assistance to the entire state of Illinois. And that's what we're talking about on this evening. So if you are a first time participant, tonight we're going to be talking about property taxes. A lot of times people see the flat tax and they sometimes mix it up with income taxes. We will not be talking about income taxes tonight. We're going to be talking about property taxes. And the big reason why is because in the state of Illinois, there's already a flat income tax. So we don't need to fight for that. What we do need to fight and why it is that we do these workshops is because we want to educate all Illinois citizens about our current public school funding formula and how it's broken and how going to a flat property tax funding formula will completely transform the economics of the state of Illinois as it relates to education funding and how it will vastly improve certain communities. So in getting started, I'm now going to share my screen, and per our usual, I want for everyone to be able to see that the information that's being shared is all public. And it's not as if though I have a monopoly on it. It's available for everyone. It is starting at the Illinois State Constitution. So a lot of times people say, well, you're proposing going to a flat property tax. What's the basis for it? Are you just looking to write new law, or is there some legal foundation for it? As an attorney, I'm all about working off of legal foundation because it's a lot easier to essentially persuade legislators and everybody to go along with an already existing law than it is to say we need to create a new law. So when we look at the state of Illinois' Constitution, Article 10 refers to education. And in this provision of the state constitution, Article 10 states that the goal of Article 10 is to create free schools. Free schools are oftentimes referred to as public education, but that was the purpose. When the framers of our state constitution got together, they said, we want to create free schools. And in doing so, the third paragraph explicitly states that the state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. And I'm going to highlight this with my cursor just so everyone knows where I'm reading from. But again, the state of Illinois has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. Those aren't my words. I didn't write the state constitution. I wasn't even born at the time that it was adopted and enacted here in the state of Illinois, which was back in the 70s. This is the foundation for what it is that we're advocating for. So anybody who tunes in, I want you to be aware that we're not proposing some radical legislation. We're simply saying the state constitution says that the state of Illinois has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education, and we want our state to do just that. Currently, the state of Illinois, state report card, only contributes approximately 27% to the funding of our public schools on average. And how you can find that information out is by going right to the state of Illinois report card for our schools. When you come here, you can click on where it says district environment, then click on where it says district finances, and then if it's a school such as District 227, which is my alma mater, Rich East, which no longer is Rich East because it's been merged because they didn't have enough money and they had to close Rich East High School. Presently, when we look at the revenue percentages, and this is where do schools get their money from? For the high school District 227, where are they getting the money from? Well, just 21.6% comes from the state, while for Rich Township, 72.6 comes from the local community. This is the average for the entire state of Illinois. 27% is the amount that the state of Illinois contributes to the funding of its public schools, which results in 65.9% having to come from the local communities on average. Trustee Matts, I see you have a hand up. Was that intentional?
No, that was intentional. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So just this past Saturday night, I was sitting at the table with a Illinois state influencer, someone who has his pulse on all of the legislators down there in Springfield, and we brought this up. He should have been on the show today, but he's on vacation. They said he'll be on the next, the first of the month. He said that language, he's familiar with the language, the 50.001% that the state's supposed to pay for educating K through 12. He said, if you were to sue the state, that language is ambiguous. He said that it's left up to the interpretation of the courts. And I'm like, huh? How does that make sense?
So he's
How is that
right.
mistaken in a way other than what in the Constitution? And he said they don't have to follow it.
Well, no, that's not true. So what he's saying is that the Constitution does not explicitly say that the primary responsibility equals 50.001%. That's what he means by it's ambiguous. And it's not necessarily ambiguous, it's just not explicit. Those, and again, it's like we're just talking about with regret versus something that you would change. Those two aren't equal. Regret doesn't mean you won't change something, and just because you want to change something, it doesn't mean that you regret it. Same concept for ambiguous versus explicit. Just because the Constitution doesn't explicitly state that it's 50.001% doesn't mean it's ambiguous. But to his point, how we would get it to become explicit is that someone would file suit against the state of Illinois, and then as a part of the evidence or as a part of the arguments of the plaintiff, they would introduce all of the case law that says primary responsibility is equal to 50.001%. And that's why, if you remember, I brought up the Cornell law article, which talks about the employment sector. So that's where it is that language comes from. Whenever there's a primary responsibility as it pertains to a job description, that means that the employee is doing that responsibility more than 50.0001% of the time. So that's what that looks like. If someone were to sue, I would be willing to wager that we would win along those lines. But the problem is that it likely wouldn't happen in state court. It would be removed to federal court, and there would and it's challenging. And I won't go into the specifics. In order to file suit on that matter, there would have to be a federal question, but education funding is purely left to the states. So that's where the conundrum comes in. Ms.
Attorney Reed. Yeah, okay, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah,
Ms. Miller had her hand up as well.
Yes.
Miller is my ex-husband, so you just call me Sherry or Wells.
Okay.
Adam, you know me better than that.
I know. Hey, I'm just respecting it.
I'm messing with you. But what I wanted to say to Cassandra is that was the language about being explicit, or what was the other word you used?
Ambiguous. Say explicit versus ambiguous.
That's how they was able to overturn Roe versus Wade. Because in the Constitution, he's trying to say that, because Clarence Thomas was trying to say that we didn't have that right, to abortion because it wasn't explicit in the Constitution. Am I correct?
Yes. So there's nowhere in the United States Constitution where it explicitly guarantees the right to an abortion. You are
exactly correct. That's what I want to explain. That's what Rich Miller was talking about.
Yep. And ultimately, that is a big part of why we find ourselves in this predicament, because of the fact that there's nowhere within even the state constitution where the language explicitly says 50.001%. But how legislation works and how any legal arguments work is that we look to other decisions where there's been some type of language provided by the courts that says when we see the word primary or the term primary responsibility in employment settings, it equals 50.001%. So as a part of a legal battle, there would be more than enough support for it. However, we're not even concerned with trying to win a legal battle because it's much easier, believe it or not, for us to win the battle of public opinion so long as we get the information to enough individuals. And that's what leads to the next point. So here it is that we have a school such as Rich Township, the high school district, which is only receiving 21.6% of its funding from the state of Illinois. It's not even receiving the 27% average. However, we have other states such as the state of Michigan, the state of North Carolina, the state of Idaho, and the state of Louisiana, where their states are giving more than 60% of the funding to their public schools. So while the state of Illinois is at 27%, which is last, dead last out of all 50 states, there are states just north of us, Northeast and Michigan, which are giving 69% of the funding for the public schools from the state government. And that's what it is that we are striving to work towards. Now, a lot of people say, okay, you're talking these percentages, 27% and 21% and for Rich Township or 69% in Michigan. What does that all translate to? Well, what it translates to is the fact that in the state of Illinois, or Cook County specifically, Cook County clerks tax rate reports, the three highest property tax rates in Cook County and in the state of Illinois in its entirety are Park Forest, which has a 35.6% tax rate, Phoenix, Illinois, which has approximately a 32% tax rate, and Ford Heights, the village of Ford Heights, which has a 31% tax rate. So if you live in Park Forest, Phoenix, or Ford Heights, you pay 6 times as much in property taxes as someone who has the same value home in Hinsdale, Burr Ridge, or Barrington. And again, all this information is public. It's not as if though I have a monopoly on it and I'm telling you some secret information. This is the clerk's tax report for tax year 2020, which is the last year that they have the data for. So Park Forest has a composite tax rate of 35.469%. Phoenix has a tax rate of 28.159%. Ford Heights has a tax rate of 27.94%. The village of Park Forest has the highest property tax rate in the United States of America, not just Cook County, not the state of Illinois, not the Midwest, but the United States of America. Compare and contrast with the village of Burr Ridge. The village of Burr Ridge has the lowest average composite tax rate of just 6.54%. Hinsdale, 6.75%, and Glenview, 6.9%. The city of Chicago is also at 6.9. So whenever you hear people claiming that the city of Chicago has some of the highest property taxes around, that's not the case. They're actually the lowest, the third lowest in Cook County. And again, this is according to the Cook County Clerk's Office, which is responsible for compiling the tax rates for each municipality. Now, a lot of people say, well, why are the taxes so high in communities such as Park Forest, Phoenix, and Ford Heights versus Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, and Glenview? Because don't those communities also have high schools and elementary schools? Why is it that the schools are making up such a big chunk in Park Forest, Phoenix, and Ford Heights versus in Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, and Glenview? The answer is very simple. You can't get blood from a turnip. That is what our current public school education system is asking. For the poorest communities in Cook County, And when I say poor, here's the data. The median household income in Park Forest is $53,938. But more importantly, the median property value is only $73,600. That is the median, which means that you have a lot of houses that are below and a few houses that are above. But that's the median property value. Now let's compare and contrast those figures for the village of Burr Ridge. So village of Burr Ridge, median household income. When we look at the village of Burr Ridge, the median household income for Burr Ridge is $159,335. But the most important number is the property value. The median property value in Burr Ridge is $686,600, approximately 10 times as much as the median property value in Park Forest. Yeah, so you're right. Those are some of the poorest communities in the Southland. And even Park Forest, even though we like to think, oh, Park Forest is a little bit better, it's not. And that's why I love for us to actually look at the data. So I've been informed that we have a Richton Park resident. So let's take a look. What's the Richton Park median household income? The Richton Park median household income is $62,858. So it is $9,000 more than Park Forest. However, what really tells the story is the median property value. The median property value is $146,000, which is exactly double that of Park Forest. But even with that being the case, we can take a look to see what the tax rate is in Richton Park. And I like the chances that it's going to be pretty high. Richton Park. So let's take a look. So the property tax rate in Richton Park is, I'd be willing to wager it's about 18%. And the survey says it is, yep, so in 2019, it was 18%. 2020, because of the pandemic funding, it dropped down to 16.5%. But even at 16.5%, that's essentially 3 times as much as Hinsdale or Burr Ridge or even the city of Chicago. That's because there just isn't enough wealth. There isn't enough money in Richton Park to contribute 66% to the funding of the public schools. That's what our current system is asking. However, there's more than enough money in Burr Ridge to fund not only 66% of the schools, but to fund 130% of what the budget is for the schools. So one of the things that a lot of people are unaware of is that the State Board of Education sets an amount that each school district and each school needs to be adequate, just to turn the lights on, just to be able to pay the teachers and the teachers' salaries. Every single year they set that figure. And some of you may have heard about the evidence-based funding legislation that was passed back in the AUKS, as they're called. Well, how the evidence-based funding works is that schools that are receiving less than 70% of funding are to be at the top of the list to receive just enough money so they can get to 70% funding. That was the great idea of our legislators, that for schools that aren't at 70%, we're going to put them at the front of the list to get enough funding to get to 70%. If you are in Rich Township, Richton Park, Park Forest, Matson, parts of Chicago Heights, Country Club Hills, Olympia Fields, all of those communities, your high schools are currently receiving 77% of the funding they need just to be adequate. That's not to have extracurricular programs. That's not to have on-site tutoring. That's not to have on-site speech pathologists. That is simply to be adequate. So just imagine how many programs have to be cut in order for you to make 77% stretch long enough to actually educate the students. Now let's contrast that, because when we look at Burr Ridge having the lowest property tax rates in all of Cook County, they are high school district 86. Hinsdale Township. It's no surprise that Hinsdale and Burr Ridge are two of the top three in terms of lowest property tax rates. So Rich Township had a budget of 77 million, and they essentially were working with $56 million of funding. Hinsdale Township has a budget of $56 million, and somehow they're working with $78 million worth of funding. Their district is funded at a rate of 139% to adequacy budget. How is that possible? Well, let's take a look, because when we go to district environment and go to district finances, and then we look at our revenue percentages, it will tell us where the funding is coming from. Well, the funding is coming from the local community. 93.3% of the funds necessary to fund their school, and not just necessary, over and above, they're 39% to budget, are coming from the local community. And the reason why is because the state of Illinois is relying on local communities to fund their public schools. And that is a terrible model, because if you live in Park Forest, your median house value is just $73,000. What percentage of $73,000 are you going to have to take in order to come up with $77 million for just your high schools? That's not mentioning your grade schools, your elementary schools, or your community college, because the local community also pays for community colleges. So it's not just K through 12. Our tax dollars, our property tax dollars, are actually funding our local community colleges and our universities. University of Illinois, University of Illinois at Chicago. Those are public institutions, so they receive tax dollars that are part of the funding as well. So I'm going to pause here because I've thrown a lot, shown a lot of graphs, a lot of numbers, a lot of charts, talked about a lot of things. I want to see if there are any questions. Are there any questions about any of the content that we've discussed thus far? And I agree with you, Ms. Wells. It is a shame. And that's part of the reason why we continue to do these workshops every first and third Wednesday of the month. Sometimes it's just the three of us. We much rather prefer that it not be just the three of us. Absolutely. But that's the reason why we're always doing them, because you're right, it is a crying shame. And the big reason why it is because most people don't know this is what the true problem is. Trustee Winston, you were getting ready to say something.
No, I'm just listening. And of course, I every time I'm on the show, I feel a little bit more smart about this whole particular process. And I'm glad to see two new people here, because this is the way we make an impact. It's a slow process, but we're going to get there. So I believe in it.
Yes, as do I. And I'm very grateful and thankful that you've taken the time out to view it. Any other questions? Any questions before I kind of transition into what the solution is and why and how it will work? Any questions? Okay, so if not, I'm going to come back up to the top of the screen. So this is the tax rate extension report. It comes out usually every July. However, in this case, the reason why it hasn't come out is because the assessor's office was late to provide all of the information that everybody needed in order to come up and calculate their tax rates and their budgets. So again, in talking about what the problem is, most people think that their property tax bill is high because of Cook County. When I was working for the county, I would always hear Crook County. It never failed. When I told somebody I worked for the county, they would instantly say, oh, you work for Crook County. And they said, that's the reason my tax bill is so high. Well, I would always kind of laugh because I would say, well, that just goes to show that you are completely misguided about our property tax system. Approximately 68% on average. So 68% of your property tax bill goes to the funding of your public schools. Depending upon what municipality you're in, the next largest chunk is going to go to the local community. And then after that, then you get into all of the other taxing bodies. You have your libraries, you have the mosquito abatement district. And then usually Cook County only accounts for roughly 3 to 4% of your property tax bill. So the county doesn't actually have very much to do with how expensive your tax bill is. The number one factor are the public schools that your particular house is a part of those districts. So where you live and the school districts that you're a part of typically dictate what percentage of your tax bill is going to the funding those schools. We looked at a few tax bills on last week where the funding percentage was close to 70% in Tinley Park. But what we like to do is we like to look at actual figures. So we're going to look at a home in Richton Park and find out what percentage of a Richton Park tax bill is going to the schools. So let's
compare it to mine in Olympia Fields. I'll put my address in the chat.
Excellent. We'll do just that. So let's take a look at this $275,000 home that is for sale. So we have 22093 map. I think that's Millard. Okay, so good. And again, all of this information is public. So the goal is to make sure that everyone knows this information isn't even being hidden from us. It's just a case where, unfortunately, so few people are taking the time and a moment out to actually research it and learn it for themselves. All right, so we have this home that was, according to the assessor, worth $192,770. And the tax bill in 2020 was $8,540. So now let's look and see what percentage of that tax bill actually went to the funding of public schools. This is something that anybody can do. Just click at the bottom where it says more tax bill information. And when it says that, it will bring up the tax bill. We're going to look at the second installment. The second installment shows the breakdown of those figures. So we're going to open it up and there it is. Never fails. So in taking a look at it, these are the percentages as to what the funds are being spent on. So when we look at it, 8.34% is being spent to take care of the mosquito abatement, the water reclamation, and the Richton Park Public Library District. 73.52% is being spent on schools. 3/4 of the bill goes straight to the schools, goes to District 162, my alma mater, shout out to Hoot and Indiana School, goes to District 227, my alma mater, shout out to Rich East, and then goes to Prairie State. Not my alma mater, but shout out to Prairie State as well. And then the village of Richton Park only accounts for 12.64%, a tiny infinitesimal percentage in contrast in comparison to the schools. And then Cook County, right down here at the bottom, is bringing up the rear at just 3.14%. So this outrageous tax bill, and I say outrageous because for a $200,000 home in Burr Ridge, the tax bill would be just $3,000, roughly $3,500. So in comparison to Burr Ridge, which as we all know, the schools are likely a lot better in Burr Ridge. The roads are going to be better. The city services are going to be better. The township services are going to be better. Sometimes they have township centers that look like state-of-the-art facilities with televisions on the wall, tracks, upper decks. They have all kinds of different services, give food pantries away. That's what it is that their tax dollars are getting for them. And that's because there's far more money in those communities. Now, we're going to look and take a peek at a tax bill for Olympia Fields to compare and contrast that. How does that Richton Park bill stack up to an Olympia Fields bill? Well, it works almost the same exact way in terms of the bulk and majority of that tax bill is going to likely go to schools. But let's find out what the exact percentage is.
And also, Attorney Reed, keep in mind that Olympia Fields has been deemed a senior community because the median age is 55. So we don't have kids in the system, but we're aging out and we're retiring, and it's just choking us out of our homes.
Absolutely. And here's why. Because take a look, 75.36% of your bill is going to the funding of the schools. And again, we're talking about wholly underfunded schools. We looked at District 227. It had an adequacy budget of roughly 73 million. Last year, they received 57 million. So 75.36% of your bill went to funding the schools, with 36% of that going to District 227. And yet the school district was completely underfunded by essentially 30%. This is the problem that we're running into. And when we look at Olympia Fields, their median household income is going to be amongst the highest, if not the highest, in the south suburbs. I think possibly Flossmoor might be the only other community above yours. And I don't ever accept when people try and say that Orland is part of the south suburbs, because we all know that is nonsense. Okay, so what is Olympia Fields, Illinois median household income?
Should be 125,000.
That's really high. That's creeping up to Orland numbers. Come on, Data USA, help me out. So 116. There we go. Which is close to 125. So even with Olympia Fields having one of the highest, if not the highest, in the southern suburbs, they still have a tax bill which is based on that tax rate, with 75% of the funding going to the public schools. That's because there just isn't enough money in the local communities to fund public schools. And that was the reason why the Constitution didn't want the local communities funding public schools. It placed the primary responsibility on the shoulders of the state of Illinois. And even though you spoke with an influencer who says it's ambiguous, that language is not ambiguous, it's not explicit, but thanks to several opinions from the Illinois State Supreme Court that says when it comes to employment, primary responsibility translates to 50.001%. So we know what the state of Illinois Supreme Court thinks anytime it sees that phraseology of primary responsibility. So the state constitution tells us that the state has the primary responsibility. We know from several legal opinions, what does primary responsibility mean in the law? And here is, let's go to Cornell. They're one of the best. In employment, okay. Where is it at? There we go. Oh, job responsibility. Job responsibility. There we are. So here's, again, from Cornell, which is Cornell Law School is one of the foremost authorities when it comes to legal definitions. It's what got me through law school. Whenever I didn't know what something was talking about, I went right to Cornell and would pull it up and it would be spot on. Here is, and again, they call this information from all opinions from across the country. It's not just state of Illinois or New York, it's everywhere. So the amount of time spent performing exempt work can be a useful guide to determine whether exempt work is a primary duty of an employee. That's them saying, if you want to figure out if exempt work is a primary duty of an employee, the employees who spend more than 50% of their time performing exempt work will generally satisfy the primary duty requirement. It's clear. That is explicit language. That comes from numerous court opinions. Some of you may be familiar with the Shackman Decree, which Cook County, certain Cook County agencies and certain City of Chicago agencies are under. This was the standard that was used while I was at the recorder's office. That was the metric that the Shackman monitor would always say is what amount of your job is spent doing exempt duties. If it's more than 50%, you are an exempt employee. Same premise when it comes to the primary responsibility or primary duty on behalf of the state. So if you ever find yourself in a conversation with that influencer again, feel free to say Illinois law is well established that primary responsibility translates to more than 50%, which we know to be 50.001%, again, coming out of the political world in terms of votes. Yeah, so you got it. That house probably is right next to you. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about houses that are in faraway places and tax bills that are in faraway places. We're talking about our own tax bills. So in getting to what the solution is, the solution is simply for the state of Illinois to go to a flat property tax rate. Right now, we already have a flat income tax. Approximately 2 Novembers ago, there was a referendum that was on the ballot where Illinoisans could vote in favor of going to a graduated progressive income tax, where we would go from just a flat 4.95% for everyone to where if you made over $250,000, there would be a marginal tax bracket. So you would pay 5.5% if you earned over 250,000. And again, it would only be on the income that was earned over 250,000. And then if you got over $1 million, the bracket would then go up to 6.5%. And I believe it was going to top out at that 6.5%. And that's how our federal system is. The more money you make, the more you get taxed on just the money that's over that different tax bracket. That's what's called marginal tax brackets. Well, the state of Illinois, even though it was going to be one of the best things that could possibly happen, the Illinois population, because they didn't know and understand exactly what was being proposed, because of very poor messaging and a lack of understanding of taxes in general, overwhelmingly voted against going to a graduated tax income tax. And it was one of the most ridiculous things ever, because again, it goes to show how many people vote against their own interest. But it's because if people aren't educated and informed about how it exactly is to their benefit, they're going to go with what it is that they see on TV. And right around the time when that was being proposed, some of the most wealthy billionaires in the state of Illinois got together and they paid millions of dollars in advertising to tell people to vote against what was called the fair tax. And that's why we do these workshops, because we don't want to repeat. We want for the state of Illinois, which said, hey, we like a flat income tax, even though it's not good for the majority of us, we like it. Well, great. Now that the state of Illinois has voted in favor of that, we're just asking for the state of Illinois to do the same thing for its property tax. So when it comes to our education funding, every single municipality throughout the entire state of Illinois should have a 10% tax rate. Every single municipality, Richmond Park, Forest Park, Park Forest, South Holland, Chicago Heights, Fort Heights, Phoenix, Riverdale, Olympia Fields, Country Club Hills, every single municipality throughout the state of Illinois should have a flat property tax rate of 10%. And if we go to a flat property tax rate of 10%, that will generate over $4 billion in new revenue. And that's because in a community such as Burr Ridge and Hinsdale, which is currently just paying 6.9%, by going up just that 3% on that community and those communities alone will gross billions of dollars in new revenue. Now, in order for this to work, how it has to work is that instead of the money going to the local school districts, the money will go down to Springfield, and then Springfield will send the money to all of the schools, no matter where they're at throughout the state of Illinois. So I see here.
Yeah, it looks like Trustee Matz has her hand up. But
Yes.
it's been up the whole time, so I wasn't 100% sure.
So Attorney Reed, we're talking about the flat tax, taking it down to 10%. How would that affect my services in my community? Will Olympia Fields get less money because now that we're reducing it, or we're making it even across the board? Just what's the difference between that and the monies we're receiving now?
Great question. And the great part about it is we looked at the property tax bill, and as we saw, the village of Richmond Park in this case, and I don't know where my Olympia Fields tax bill is, but let me pull that, see if here it is. So here is the Olympia Fields tax bill. And what percentage of this tax bill went to the village of Olympia Fields? This line that I highlighted. So the answer is 11.14%. $952 out of the $8,548.45 went to Olympia Fields. Well, imagine if $6,441.57 didn't have to go to the schools anymore. If Olympia Fields was on a 10% tax rate, that would mean that the tax bill would be cut by 25%. So technically about 26%. So let's do the math. 26% would amount to 73%, 74%. So what's 74% of $8,548.45 times 0.76? So in your case, your tax bill would be reduced down to $6,496.82. You just got $2,000. Congratulations. How would you like to have $2,000 put back into your pocket? Sound like something you could get with Trustee Matz?
I can put that on another trip. How about that?
Sounds good. So you put that money on another trip.
Or birthday gift.
Or birthday gift. But now,
for her friends, of course,
that $2,000 saved, the money that was saved is coming out of which line item? It's coming out of the schools, because now instead of us funding our schools at a local level, it's being funded at the state level. So the $2,000 difference drops this amount of $6,441.57. It drops it down to $4,441.57. Well, because of that, and it's even going to drop it down more, because remember, we're going to be funding it at a state level. So it's not going to have to take $4,441.57 from you to fund the schools, because Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, Winnetka, Barrington, all of those schools are generating so much wealth. So realistically, this amount is going to drop down by, let's say, $4,000. Well, where's that other $2,000 that now has been saved going to go? The answer is it's going to go to all of these other services, because the money is still being collected. It's just not being funneled to the schools exclusively anymore. So now the South Cook mosquito abatement gets more money. The Metro Water Reclamation District of Chicago gets more money. Olympia Fields Park District gets more money. The Olympia Fields Library Fund, Olympia Fields, Rich Township, all of these other agencies are splitting $2,000. And the reason why is because instead of 75% of your bill, or $6,441.57 being needed to fund the schools at a rate of 77%, our schools are now funded at a rate of 100%. And there's still lots of money left over because there's more than enough revenue coming from the state of Illinois. So does that part make sense? Does it help explain why not only are your services going to stay the same in most instances, but they're going to vastly improve? Because if the village of Olympia Fields gets an extra $500 from all of its residents, what can it now do with that surplus of funds? Well, the answer is whatever the administration of Olympia Fields thinks needs to be done, whether that means hiring more police officers, whether that means spending more money on attracting new businesses, whether that means luring different employers with tax abatements and tax relief. That's the goal and the benefit of this system. We take the money that exists already, and instead of allowing it to be funneled into the local schools, we send it to Springfield, and Springfield sends it wherever the children are. If the children are in Rockford, then they get their money. If the children are in East St. Louis, they get their money. Every school district now is funded at a rate of 100% of adequacy budget. And if Burr Ridge or Barrington or Hinsdale, if they still want for their schools to be funded at a rate of 139%, they can always, under home rule, say, we're not going to stop at just the 10% tax rate. We're going to go to 11% or 12%, with the stipulation that all of the excess funds stay local. And a lot of people will say, well, wow, that'll mean that their tax bill rate would be 12%. Sure, it would. But how much is Olympia Fields' tax rate? 15%. How much is Richmond Park's? 15%. And we don't apparently have a problem with it. So it wouldn't be the end of the world for Hinsdale or for Burr Ridge or for Barrington to have a tax rate that's comparable to what we currently have, just so that they can stay at 140% to their adequacy budget. While in turn, all of the schools throughout the state of Illinois would then be at a rate of 100%. So for every community that currently has a tax rate above 10%, their tax bill would go down. It would decrease by whatever the percentage is. And we can find out what those are. So in taking a look at it, if we have a community such as Alsip's in the south suburbs, their tax rate is 11.89%. Theirs would go down roughly 2%. Not going to be a drastic savings in their case. Barrington is going to go up from 7.415% to 10%, a 3% increase. Arlington Heights going to go up to 10%, a 0.8% increase. Barrington Hills going to go up. Then when we talk about communities such as Calumet City, 21.88%. Their tax bills are going to be cut in half. If you live in Calumet City and your tax bill is 10 grand, it's going to be cut down to 5 grand. And your schools are going to be funded at a rate of 100%. And if your schools are funded at a rate of 100%, and the local community saw a savings of 50%, what is the local community going to do with that new influx of money that they receive? Well, the answer is some of them are going to go on trips to Mexico, but more of them are going to spend money in their local communities. They're going to start frequenting restaurants more frequently. They're going to start shopping at their local Targets and Walmarts more frequently. That's the power of going to a flat income tax. We're going to fund our public schools at a rate of 100%. We are going to create new disposable income in these communities, and we're going to make it where it's consistent across the board as to what your property tax rate is. You're not going to have to guess every August or September what your tax rate is. It'll help with being able to budget. It'll allow for you to be able to know what it is that you can expect. And it'll make the assessor's job easier, because instead of trying to figure out what assessments need to be in order to generate enough income for that particular taxing district, the money that is most necessary to fund schools is going to come from the state of Illinois. And it's in the state constitution that that's how the system was supposed to be set up. So I'm going to pause here because we're right at 8 o'clock. I want to see if there are any questions. I know I've thrown a lot of information, a lot of math, a lot of figures. Any questions about anything that's been discussed? Any questions? And I'll check the chat. If you want to put it in the chat instead of unmuting and asking, you can do that as well. Okay, excellent. I like that. So this is what it is that we're proposing. It's not rocket science. It's not something which is radical in terms of there being no legal justification or no financial analysis with it. It's all basic math. Right now, the wealthiest people only have to give a small percentage of their wealth in order to have the best schools in the state. What we're asking is that all people across the state contribute 10% of their home's property value. 10%. And instead of keeping that money local, let's send that money down to Springfield, and then let's send the money wherever the kids are. Let's stop allowing wealthy, affluent communities to concentrate their wealth and use it to fund the best, essentially private schools, but on a local public basis. Let's allow for the state of Illinois to contribute at least 50.001%. And then if the local communities, the wealthy, affluent ones, still want to have better schools, have at it. But now all schools throughout the state of Illinois will be operating at 100%. All schools throughout the state of Illinois will have enough money to have a fully funded arts program, a fully funded music program, fully funded extracurricular activities, programs such as boys volleyball. When I attended Ritchie's, we couldn't afford, and we didn't have a boys volleyball team. I'm really good at volleyball. I could have been an Olympian, but because we didn't have the funding, it wasn't an option. Whereas my counterparts at Andrew, my counterparts at Carl Sandburg, counterparts at Tinley Park, they had that. And that's what it is that we're looking for. We're looking for equality in education funding, and it's available and accessible. And what we need is for more people to show up and learn how our system is broken, how there's a constitutional justification for asking that we switch to a flat property tax. So if you can invite your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, all of those different, you got it, all those social services, the nurses. There are some schools which share nurses, literally one nurse for the whole school district. There are some school districts where one social worker goes between multiple schools. Whereas in Barrington, Hinsdale, Burr Ridge, each of those schools have multiple nurses, multiple social workers, counselors, all kinds of college programs. They have ACT tutoring. That's because the funding is staying local. We need for the funding to go to the state and then have the state give the funding equally throughout the state of Illinois. That's what a flat property tax is about. It's about collecting the same percentage, not the same dollar amount. Because as we saw, houses in Hinsdale and Burr Ridge have a median property value of $686,000, while properties in Park Forest have a median property value of $73,000. It doesn't make sense to ask the property owner in Park Forest to give 36% of their $73,000 valued home to fund their schools, while we're only asking that the property owner in Burr Ridge and Hinsdale give 6.9% of their massively wealthy home to then fund their schools that receive 139% to budget of what they need to just be adequate. That's what we're advocating for. That's what we're proposing. Our hope is that you will invite a friend, a family member, a neighbor, an enemy to please come on to the first week in August. It's the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of each and every month. You don't have to guess about it. You don't have to remember certain dates. Just remember, first Wednesday, third Wednesday. If it's the first or the third, we're going to be here. And we always are here, even if it's just us. So please encourage and invite anyone you know who's interested, because our goal is to grow and become essentially the Mothers Against Drunk Driving movement for education funding. It started small with a few mothers who had lost their children and loved ones to drunk driving, and they said, we're not going to accept this anymore. And they helped change how punitive the laws in the state of Illinois are regarding drunk driving. We want to be the new age Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and it requires your assistance and help. Please just invite people to come and listen, ask whatever questions they have, and then find out for themselves that it's not truly a case where it's because we don't have businesses, or it's because we have an aging population that qualifies for multiple exemptions. Our taxes are high for one reason and one reason only. There's too much reliance of local dollars to fund our public school education. So that's all it is that I have, if there are no other questions.
I think there's no other questions, Attorney Reed.
All right.
Sorry
well,
about
again,
that. I'm sorry, I got a text message. No, I have no other questions, but this was really, really good. And it was very, very informative. And I'm like, I'm floored. I'm like, damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the
This
response
took
we
my-
constantly get.
Yeah, it just blew my mind. I'm like, wait, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And we just need more people to come and then hear it. And again, it's not as if though we're trying to sell people or ask people for money or donations or anything like that. We don't want anything other than just essentially an hour of your time. Give us an hour so we can share the information. And then if you say, you know what, I don't believe it, or I'm comfortable paying all this money in property taxes, or I like what I have, that's okay. But we just need an opportunity for people to learn it and understand it. And usually when they do, they feel exactly how you are. And that's what we need. We need more people to come and listen and be floored and then understand there's a solution.
So I have a question, Mr. Mario. So
Yes, ma'am.
have you, I'm in my mind, I'm an organizer. So in my mind, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Okay. So
Yes.
have you made this pitch to like the Mayors and Managers Association? Because like your whole presentation, I think if we started like with the mayors, if we started the Mayors and Managers Association, like with this type of, with your pitch and whatnot, and then maybe branch out to the townships and whatnot. So you have to like start, at the grassroots level and
Mhm.
start getting people's attention, because what you have is a message. What you have is information that really people need to know.
Yes, and I agree with you. And 2 weeks ago, not this most recent call, but the call before that, we had the mayor of Tinley Park on. We've had the mayor of
Mhm.
Park Forest on. We've had the mayor of Hazelcrest, East Hazelcrest, Homewood, I think
And so
came on.
they're not encouraging their constituents, their people to come. That's not cool.
We have been, so we went and worked with an alderman at Country Club Hills. He was having a meeting, had a full packed audience. The full packed audience couldn't believe it. And at which point we said, perfect, we want to come back out, your next town hall. Right now, where we're struggling, and in large part, it's because I get it. Property taxes don't really inspire people to want to come out in droves. So I understand that it's not a topic that people, it's not like crime or, guns or any of these kind of hotbed problems that are there. But you know, as well as anyone, if you live in the South suburbs, nothing is more important to you probably than your property tax bill, because it's responsible. It's probably your largest line item. I pay more in property taxes in South Holland and in Lansing than I do for my mortgage. My
Right,
principal
exactly.
and interest is
A-
less than what my property tax bill is. It's my largest
exactly.
expense. So it's a case where we struggle because we tell people all the time, we'll come to you. If you are in Richmond Park and you can get a block club, if you can, of your neighbors, if you can get your local alderman or alderwoman or trustee or mayor to put together an event, we'll come. I will give away money. We'll have raffles so that people can literally get paid to come and learn about this. We'll give away prizes. We'll do all of that. We cannot get people to help us with that. That's it. That's all we need. We need the people to help us in getting to the people. If we can get that, we'll take care of the rest. As Trustee Winston has the signage up, we've got t-shirts. We, between Trustee Match, Trustee Winston, and myself, we've probably spent close to $5,000 of our own money trying to get this out, not to mention the countless hours of time. We are struggling, and that's what we're asking for, is for to help us get more people. So if it's something, if you have a contact at the Mayor's Association or someone
Oh, I got plenty of contacts, but I'll see. I'm gonna start with my own mayor, and then
perfect.
my uncle is the mayor of Phoenix. So I can't, like, when you brought up about Phoenix and you didn't know that, and
Nope.
technically we only have one school in Phoenix, and that's Coolidge. And so to say that the property, so that was crazy to me. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, and let's take a look, because it's a case where, again, so often we have these ideas about what it is, but that's why I'm so keen and big on, let's look at the actual information, because when we do, we oftentimes learn it's a much different story. So here's the village of Phoenix right here, and we're gonna see where that money is going. So the village of Phoenix has school district 151, district 152,
152,
Thornton Township for the high schools, and then
and then
South.
the college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So that's where that money is going. And again, 28%. I'm sure you're well aware the median property value in Phoenix can't be that high.
Hell no. And then not just that, but they just lost the police department. Like I'm saying we because I grew up in Phoenix, but between Phoenix and Harvey, because I'm a Thornton, I'm Wildcats. But they just lost the police department. And when you said what you were saying about the money going toward the school district and then what could go back into the community, they have to now rely on Cook County for policing.
Yeah. And that's because, take a look, the median household income in Phoenix is $36,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The median property value is $75,000. So imagine losing 30% of that $75,000 to pay for the schools. And then the quality of schools in Phoenix. That's what you're getting. And that's exclusively because we currently have a broken funding formula.
Right.
Phoenix,
Mhm. Go ahead.
Phoenix would be able to see a 66% reduction in their property tax bill because it would go from 30% down to 10%. And the
Wow.
schools would be funded at a rate of 100%. So if
Mm.
there's 66% that's now going back to the homeowners, the local municipality will now get an increase in its funding. So now they can have their own police department. Now they can have all of the same social services that exist in communities like Burr Ridge or Hinsdale or any of these wealthy communities, all by doing
Exactly.
a simple change that's in the state constitution. That's it.
So what's amazing to me is if you have pointed this out to these mayors, these local mayors now, what could they have, what they could have if this happened this way, that they're not on board. That's amazing to me.
So it's even far more amazing to myself because, again, the whole reason why Trustee Matz joined this effort is because she was running for mayor of Olympia Fields. And she came and
Right.
said, hey, can you help me become mayor of Olympia Fields? And I said, Trustee Matz, I don't have the time to be a full-time campaign manager for your campaign. But what I can do is explain to you how when you go out and talk to all the residents of Olympia Fields, you can tell them I have a solution for reducing property taxes. And she
Mhm.
came to my office, she sat down, and she spent 2 hours learning about it. And she said, the heck with trying to become mayor of Olympia Fields. I want to focus on this and help get this out to everybody in the state of Illinois. And she has been one of the greatest partners I ever could have asked for. She's
Oh
gotten
yeah,
us
that's
to
my
go
girl.
to
We get down.
Rockford.
Mhm.
We've went all over the state talking at all kinds of symposiums and conventions. And she's gotten numerous mayors to come on and hear it. What oftentimes happens is that the mayor says, I have this many battles to fight. And I'm going to focus on the ones that are showing up at my doorstep every single day. It's easy
Mhm.
for a mayor to say, well, the reason your taxes are high is because of the schools. And then they shift the blame onto the schools, and then the residents just accept it. So because it's not something that is a battle that's right in front of them, I'm
Mhm.
confident that's the reason why it is that they aren't as excited. But even though that's the case, it's up to us as the residents because the mayor is just, again, one person paying property taxes like us. Collectively, all of us are the ones who should be on fire because the true parties who are responsible are our state senators and our state representatives. But I guarantee you, if you walked up and down your block, less than 1% of the people would be able to tell you who their state senator and their state representative is.
Listen, listen. I've been organizing campaigns for 25 years. I already know. It's
Yeah,
hard. It's especially hard to get Black folks to understand what's going on.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's what we're fighting for because the majority of these communities, as you know, are Black and brown. So
Right.
those are the ones that are going to benefit astronomically. We just need for them to know about it because we've pitched this. We pitched it to State Senator Joyce, State Representative DeLuca, State Representative Will Davis, State Representative Debbie Myers Martin. Who else?
Okay, so
That,
let me run this by you because I know we gotta go. But let me say this because I'm just sitting here thinking because I got my organizing cap going, I got my organizing mind, and I'm my wheels are turning. So my daughter, who was the other person online, when she was a sophomore in high school, because we were living in Phoenix, so we went to with Thornton Wildcats. So they were proposing. We went to go register for school, and they said we weren't gonna have school buses. Okay. So what I did, because it was election time, so and I also was working on a campaign. So I organized all the people who were running for office at that time in the area, and the teachers,
the students, the parents, and I ended up having a town hall meeting at the school at Thornton, right? So when it was, by the time everything was over and all was said, we got the school buses back. It was me and one other parent. So what I'm saying is, to say that is, you're saying we have to reach out to the people. So I think the best time to reach people, in my opinion, I don't know. So I'm just throwing it out there, is when it's election time. To try to have a town hall meeting, something like that, what we did to get the buses back. You understand what I'm saying? So what happened was, I was at the school, me and this one other parent, we was at the school in the morning, we was in the school in the afternoon. And then some of the other students started joining, then some of the other parents started joining us, passing out flyers to parents as they were coming up, dropping off their kids to school. And so what was on one side of the flyer was this day we was going to have this town hall meeting. Was on the other side of the flyer was everybody who was elected already and currently in office, and everybody who was running for office. So everybody got to get a piece of the pie. You know what I'm saying? So everybody had to be accountable. So when I tell you, it was standing room only there, because it took, just like you said, just a couple people for me, and what I tell, one of my mottos is, it only takes one person to make a movement. You understand what I'm saying? So just like you said, Cassandra came to you, then Cassandra told me and my daughter and Winston and Adam. So it took one person to make a movement. So let's make a movement. You understand what I'm saying?
Sign me up. Sign me
Okay.
up. I've been working on this since 2006, when I was an intern at the Metropolitan Planning Council. And I learned about it from an organization called A+ Illinois that was working with Senator Meeks at the time.
Yeah,
So-
I was working Meeks campaign is when I organized those buses.
Yeah,
To get the buses back. Yep.
So trust you me, I know all about, and I've been in it for 16 years. So I'm committed to it, because I don't want for my daughter to have to leave the state of Illinois in order to live in a place where she can have a nice home and have good schools around people who look like her. So I'm on board and I'm committed to it.
Okay.
My big issue is time. That's the commodity that I don't have a lot of.
Yeah, I don't
running
have
a
either.
law firm, and it keeps me busy, normally 80 to 90 hours a week. But I'm committed.
feel you
I
on
have
that.
money. So if you know of an organization, or even if anyone, where we can pay people to go out and pass out those flyers and essentially do the same thing as campaigning, I'm happy to provide the financing for it. And anytime that there's an opportunity for a town hall or whatever that looks like, I don't care where it is, we'll go, whether it's in person or electronic, we'll be there.
Mhm.
But that's what we need. So yes, if you can assist us in the organization component,
Tap me in.
we will take
Tap
care
me
of it.
in. Tap me in. Put me in the game, coach.
You
But
got it.
like you said, I'm me too. I have my time, because between working, I'm also in school. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to get my degree and shit together, and stuff like that. So I got a lot of things going on myself. Plus, I got health issues. But nonetheless, I'm tag me in. I'm in.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, put me in the game. Put me in the game. Okay. So anyway, I could talk to Cassandra. I'll let you guys go. Adam, you know how to reach me too. So whatever we want, whatever we got to do, just let me know. Nah, I'm in. So I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Well, I just think that with the message that you have, and you presented your message to these mayors while I got that we got other things going on, and I got it. I understand it. But this should be a priority as well.
That's our hope, and that's our priority. And we're happy to work around any mayor's schedule when they're together, when they're apart. We just want to get it to them, because as you now know, once you learn about it, it gets you excited, it gets you riled up, because it shouldn't be this way. And that's what we have
Exactly.
to impress. progress. So
Right.
hopefully we'll be able to do it. And hopefully we'll see you on the first Wednesday in August. And then ideally, if you're able to make it a little bit earlier, we can kind of coordinate and talk about scheduling some events, maybe as school's getting ready to get back involved, because it'll be easier to hit more parents and so forth, like you mentioned, in the parking lot with that information. So,
Okay, well, classes for me start again on the 15th. So I gotta work around my schedule. So yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna do I'm in as much as I can be in. I'm tripping on all the information that you gave. I'm just like, my whole head is like blown, like, really, what? So yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the passion. We were looking forward. Trustee Winston, you're still on mute.
Miss Wells, I will be talking to you soon. Okay, I cut that off, that Miller. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us, Attorney Reed. You know, it's always my pleasure. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I don't eat at Olive Garden, but so you can make it up to me at another place, maybe a nice steakhouse, Attorney Reed. So, and I'll buy. I don't mind buying them.
Well, we can ride together too. I don't mind.
No. That's my only birthday gift I need is not to ride in your car. Okay.
When is your birthday, Adam?
My birthday was actually on Monday.
Oh, and Sharice's birthday was Sunday.
Yes, it sure
You
was.
didn't
So
say that.
yeah.
I didn't know that. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Great minds have those birthdays around the same time, Attorney
Yes.
Reed.
You have the same birthday as my mom.
Hey, see there, and she's an awesome person, isn't she?
No, she wasn't actually.
Oh.
So yeah, no, that's another whole story.
That's
But
a whole nother story. Okay.
Birds of a feather.
No. Too soon for that, Attorney Reed. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Ms. Wells, we'll talk. Attorney Reed, you know how to find me. We'll talk soon. Thank you for joining
for the
Black
invite.
Property Tax Session.
Bye-bye, guys.
All right.
Have a good night.
Great evening, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.